Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Nice Guy Show. I'm Dr. Ari Graff. I'm a psychologist. I'm a men's coach. And I'm also the founder of the Resilient Man System, which I'm going to tell you guys all about. And most importantly, I'm part of the Nice Guy Show with my co-hosts, Chuck and Faisal. So we're all divorced men. We're going to come back to the divorce topic today. And we're going to talk about my new program that's all for divorced men. But I want to just introduce it a little bit. Why did I want to create a program just for men who are in the middle of divorce or recently divorced? It's because I don't feel like they have enough supports that are really tailored to them. Yes, there are divorce coaches, there's therapists who focus on divorce, but when I was getting divorced, I didn't find that coaching program that I really needed. So this is what I've created, is a coaching program for nice guys who are going through the divorce process. Because I think what happens with a lot of nice guys is we nice guy our marriage and then we nice guy our divorce. So what does a nice guy divorce look like? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. What I want to give men is when they're post-divorce, starting their next chapter, that it's not the nice guy next chapter. It's not just nice guy volume 2. So that's what I have in mind for this program. And I'm going to tell you about the pillars of my program. But first, I'm going to ask Chuck and Faisal, did you guys, I know you guys nice guyed your marriages, but did you also nice guy your divorce? Do you know what it means to nice guy your divorce?
Yeah, for me, it was very much a nice guy type of thing. One was I was really hurt, but there was also this part of me that was still a caretaker and caretaking my ex. You know, I remember like she had moved into this little apartment, and like it's embarrassing now to think about this, but she had this little kitchen area, and I found this used table and chairs, a little kitchenette kind of thing, and it was used, and I actually went and reupholstered the chairs and gave it to her so that she would have a nice little place to be able to have breakfast and stuff. I don't know what I was hoping, that she would just be appreciative, or that she would see me as the nice guy, or sort of realize, oh my gosh, this is what I'm missing, this is what I'm leaving, or something along those lines. But it was really, my divorce was really, really hard on me. And I think it took me years actually to kind of get over feeling like I needed to still be responsible for her in some way. And, and responsible for her happiness, responsible for her well-being. Yeah. So
if we're used to doing that in the marriage, looking for their validation, taking responsibility for their emotions, their happiness, we're going to keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one way that maybe some nice guys go. I think the other way is, then the flip side of it was like, fuck you, I'm not going to do anything for you, and I want you to suffer, and I want you to be in pain, and I want you to feel the full weight of your decision, so I'm not, and, so there was always sort of this tension between, I'm not going to fuck you, I'm not going to do anything for you, and how can I help you? So, and then for me, I think one of the justifications for me was, well, my daughter's with her part-time, and so I don't want my daughter to like not have a place to be able to eat breakfast, that kind of thing. So there was this constant back and forth between being the nice guy caretaker and being the nice guy, like passive aggressive.
Right. So it's like we we kind of waffle between over functioning, over helping, caretaking, and then just saying, screw you, I'm not going to help you at all. So it's just
That's
all
what I did
very,
anyway. Yeah.
yeah, it's all very reactive and not conscious.
Very reactive and not conscious. That's for sure.
I can relate. How about you, Faisal? How did you nice guy your divorce?
When Chuck was sharing that, I was going, shit, that's exactly what I did. I was going through exactly this. I was like,
Did you
it's just
upholster
like
chairs?
Yeah, it was all done. I painted it, waxed it, and did. I'm like, is this like a standard software that all nice guys run when they go through a divorce? Is like collapse, calamity, pain, destruction, and there's a part of you oscillating between, oh, I'm going to really help you out and get some validation and approval here and show my worth. And look at me, I'm such a great guy. I'm not going to be like the other guys, so I won't get a bad rep. And look, what you're going to miss out on, all this help and support I'm giving you. And then it's the other way. It's like, fuck you. I'm in pain. I'm in vengeance.
Right.
I'm going to hurt you.
Suffer.
I'm going to twist that knife because you don't know what you've just done to me. You just give me the most excruciating pain ever, and I want you to suffer because when I suffer, I want you to suffer. So there was like, wow, glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no, I could totally relate. It's wanting to keep the peace. Part of that's coming out of a legitimate concern about the impact on your kids or your kid. So that was one of my concerns. I never wanted to undermine her, or badmouth her to him. To other people, you know, you can talk shit about your ex, but you never wanted to impact your child. And you know, one of the I think it was a mistake that I made was like we kept the same bank account, and
Even after,
not after the divorce, but during
Okay.
the divorce.
Oh, during the divorce. Okay.
And I was on the hook for supporting her in a way that I wasn't able to do, you know, so like I was just hemorrhaging money. So that's something that I wish that I had been more assertive about, more of a self advocate. One of the things that
whose choice was that? Whose choice was that to have a single bank account, even after she told you she's leaving you?
I don't think it was something that we discussed. I think that I just thought if I create a new account or try to separate accounts now, that it might cause conflict. I think that's what I did. You know, so it's that fear of causing conflict, fear of retaliation.
Was it like a fear of, it's like, this is the finalizing that this is actually happening?
I could see that being the case for other people, like that it's sort of like representative of actually breaking apart. I think for me, it was more that fear of what if she gets mad and what if she retaliates? Because at that point, I really wanted to get divorced. I you know, even though she left, I wanted to get this over with. And then it turned into this big slog. So yeah, I was really worried about her retaliating.
Was she likely to do that? Because yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, would she? Were you assuming that she would retaliate, or had she had the history of retaliating or being vengeful or spiteful?
I think it was more in my head, to be honest, when it comes down to it. I think it was more in my head and just like my underlying fear of conflict with people, you know, which is one of the things that really led to the breakdown of the relationship, is that I just couldn't, I couldn't stand my ground. So I think, if you're not used to standing your ground in your marriage, it's going to be hard to do it in your divorce. And this is one of the things that I want to help men do, is start being a good self-advocate during your divorce. It's a really important time to do that. One thing that I see men do is that they want to have an amicable divorce. And I get it. If you can have a peaceful divorce, that would be ideal. But I think in some cases that leads you to not actually asking for what you need or deserve, whether it's financially or in terms of custody. Do you guys agree with that?
See, when I was going through my divorce process, because I was shell shocked and I had no clue how to handle myself, and it was more like I was running a lot on reactions, and there was this autopilot responses carrying on, and then there was this battle of trying to understand and getting more introspective about me. My divorce was the time I actually woke up and became self-conscious. Before that, I was just on autopilot. So that in itself was a gift. I see now. I didn't see it in the moment. I was really angry. But what I was thinking as you were talking, is in those moments, early on stages, if I knew there was help and support and they can help me process what's going on, because I had a lot of thoughts and in my head, I had a lot of emotions in my head, and I was too embarrassed to go out and ask anyone for help. I didn't know there was any kind of help or support or any kind of programs or training or what to do, because I was so shell-shocked and I was so embarrassed that I failed. What a loser. I couldn't keep my divorce. I didn't want anyone to know. I remember even when they moved away and I would go and pick up the kids, I was so conscious about, oh, look at him. He's the one who's going through a divorce. It just felt like so isolating, like I'm the only person. So having someone there to bounce off ideas and thoughts and help you process that, I think it would have made the initial stages would have been a lot helpful. Actually, it would have been really helpful. But I did get help, but at a much later stage when I thought, okay, I've had enough. So
the stigma around divorce is really powerful.
It is. So
even though
family would think, family, culture, all of that. It's like in my culture, you don't get divorced. It's shame on you.
Yeah. Even though divorce is so common and over 50% of marriages end up in divorce, there's still so much stigma and shame around it, which I didn't realize I had so much internalized stigma until I was already in the process.
So did you guys have that? Did you feel embarrassed and shamed about, okay, you failed as a man and then now you're going through a divorce? Did you guys have that? What was this embarrassment or stigma that you guys came across?
I think mine was multiple. Culturally, I grew up in a very, religious culture as well, and divorce was something that you didn't do. You worked your way through it. I'm still to this day the only one in my family who's divorced. I mean, I have two brothers that are married. My parents are still married. And growing up, my grandmother was a divorcee, and she had multiple marriages, and it's a whole nother little story around, during the time, she was a woman who really had no skills, and the only way for her to survive was, finding a man that could provide for her and her kids. And the men that she could find, weren't necessarily the most upstanding guys. And so she would divorce. So she had been divorced multiple times, and she was kind of this cautionary tale growing up, like, you don't want to be like her. And yet she's the one I kind of like identify with the most, even now that she's been gone for a while, but and I think that there is this sort of duality of like, there's a bit of a like relief of, okay, I get to do my life over again. There's just a do-over, but additionally, like the embarrassment of it. And now it's like, I think when I, before I got divorced, I would see somebody going through a divorce and I would kind of look at them like, oh man, you couldn't hold it together, And now I see somebody going through divorce. I'm like, come on over here, brother, join the club. It's great. The water's good. We're going to be just fine. Like it's going to suck, but your life is going to be dramatically better once you get through this.
And that's the message that I want to give people going through divorce, is that it's so easy to feel like your life is over and to expect that the next chapter is going to be worse. And I've come to view divorce as really a big opportunity, and it's a catalyst for growth. Those are some of the ways that I always
in a weird way. It's a rite of passage. I mean, I kind of joke, but I almost say like every man should go through a divorce. Like
what's the best gift a wife can give her husband? A divorce.
Yeah.
I was thinking that as you were saying that as well. It is.
Well, I think,
but you don't see that in the time, that you're going through it.
No, of course not. No one. You're not gonna. When you're going through hell, it's hell. Like Winston Churchill says, you keep going, and it's only afterwards do I realize it is a gift. And when guys haven't gone through so much adversity in their life, I don't trust them, because this is the part where the pressure creates that diamond. This is the part where men, you really rite of passage. It is it builds a lot of resilience. But I guess you guys don't see that at the initial stages. They're panicking, and you're thinking the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. That's what you think is the worst case scenario. I mean, there are some horrific divorces out there. This horrific. I feel so sorry for some of the guys, and and some of the women as well. Of course, there's some horrific divorces out there. Where do you ever see in your practice, Ari, where they weaponize children as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the worst things that you see, like, especially if one parent alienates the children from the other parent, and then like maybe doesn't even allow the kids to see the other parent, turns the kids against the other parent. I mean, that is a nightmare. And sometimes that does last for years. So I don't want to sugarcoat that there's never outcomes that lead to some lasting pain. But I don't think that's the norm either. And, if you have a spouse that really has bad character, who would do something like that, you don't want to be with them in the long run, and you do need to learn what kind of partner is going to be good for your next chapter, for the long run. That would be a very painful lesson to learn. But this is one of the things that I want to be teaching men is, what are all the things that we need to learn from your first marriage? So the first pillar of my program is called Reframe. So it's really about reframing your perspective. It's about extracting all the learning and value you can from your marriage, which can feel like a tall order when you're going through divorce. But I'm going to give you a process for doing that. How do we really mine what you've been through for wisdom? The wisdom is just sitting there. And how do we get really clear on what kind of relationship you created with your wife, so you can create something new next time? Because one of the big mistakes that I see men going through who are during the divorce and then after divorce, is they just repeat the same kind of relationship or the same kind of validation seeking with women. I certainly did that. I kind of jumped on the dating apps during my divorce, and I could see now, I was just so hungry for a different kind of response from women, and I was getting it, and that felt good. But I still didn't really know um, what I was looking for in a woman. I hadn't really reflected on, the mistakes I had made in choosing a partner. So um, you're going to keep nice guying it in relationships and in your dating, and some of that I think is just a normal learning curve. But then you see so many men who get remarried very quickly, and there's a high rate of divorce and second marriages. So it's very common to make mistakes again if you haven't gotten conscious about what you're looking for and what makes for a good partner, and really taking a conscious approach to dating and relationship. So that's what I want to set men up with is, it's reframing what's happened to you, and it's building yourself up. It's reclaiming that masculine energy, that masculine core. So you're leading yourself in your life, so you have good boundaries, so you can regulate your emotions, take care of yourself well. And then the last pillar is rebuild. So you are building a bigger and better version of yourself, a more conscious version of yourself. You can, approach relationships in a whole new way. So reframe, reclaim, rebuild. That's the resilient man system.
I like it.
The 3 R's. I like it.
Yeah. As you were talking, Ari, I was thinking about, my post-divorce. It was similar, same kind of thing. Like I don't know if I can't remember if I told this story on this podcast or not before, but when a few months before my wife left, I had a cat, and I'd had the cat for like 15 years or something, right? I was really close to this cat, and the cat died. And so within a week, I just went to the Humane Society, and I picked up another cat. And the first cat was all black cat. Second it was a kitten. It was an all black cat. And suddenly my pain went away. I was like, oh, I had this new kitten to focus on. And then a few months later, my wife left me, and I literally had the thought of just like replace the cat. So I got on the dating apps, and the first woman that came along and showed me any kind of attention, I was all in, and suddenly I had this this instant family. She had 2 little boys, she's a single mom, had this cute little house, and all this kind of stuff, and I would go over there, and it was like literally felt like I was in this alternate universe, and so I was like, jump in, let's get married, and so, the ink on my divorce was barely dry before we got remarried. And then
so that was your second wife.
That was my second one. Yeah. And then, like within 2 months, like I had just imploded on myself, and, and literally, like, she found out a lot of stuff about me that I was hiding in terms of like my alcoholism and porn addiction and things like that. And, and rightly so, she left me, because I was a terrible place, but at the same time, we co-create relationships. So I'm not going to shame myself over it. But the thing was that second marriage was a total reaction to the divorce. It was like, I just want the pain to go away. And when I was with her, the pain wasn't there. And, I regret that marriage. I think a lot of people, got hurt in it because of my own, inability to go through the process of that, those 3 R's. And instead of like learning from it, I had to go through, it was almost like a double dose of pain. I had divorced, and then like literally within a year of my divorce, I hadn't even been married. I hadn't even been divorced a year, where I had divorced, remarried, and divorced, within 11-month period or something like that. So, I would say, like, don't do what I did, man. Go get some help. Like, go get, because, and I see this happen with guys all the time, where they get divorced and then they're like, okay, well, and they jump on an app, and then there's a woman, and, and she's like showing them attention, and they're going, and quite honestly, like that second relationship, I was having more sex in the first month than I had probably in the last 5 years, so it was like,
Right.
all my needs are being met, and this is wonderful, and this is somebody who just loves me and can't get enough of me, and all this kind of stuff. And it's very intoxicating, so anyway, I think that it's an important thing that guys going through divorce, like, you can be in such a reactionary state, and you don't even realize it, like Faisal was talking about being unconscious and just kind of going through these things. So, yeah.
I did the opposite of what you did, Chuck. I mean, what you did, I see a lot of guys do that as well, but I did the opposite of where because I was in so much shock, and there was a flashlight pointing towards my character, which was, you're flawed and you got a divorce. That means you're faulty and you can't keep a woman. There was all this shame that was coming up for me, and a lot of insecurities, that I shunned away from wanting to meet anyone. I was too terrified. I was like, oh, these are all my characteristics. And I just found out loads of things about me that's wrong, and I've become conscious of it. The last thing I want to do is go and meet a woman where she's going to see all my flaws, and then I'm going to be conscious of, she's conscious of my flaws and all my shortcomings. And I'm like, I'm just going to hide. And that period was a real dark period for me, because actually there was 2 sides. One, it was really dark because I'm finding all my shadows, all my dark stuff. And the other part was, actually, I can do something about it. My dark part really set me down a really negative spiral. I started to binge drink. I started to numb my pain through drinking. And I just had so much regret and pain showing up. Eventually, after overcoming this, I realized, we all pretty much have our downsides and flaws. So I did eventually. So I wanted to improve my social skills and wanted to improve my ability with women. And I went on this journey of trying to improve myself, meeting women, and I did. And the thing is, when I did get into my first relationship after my divorce, I thought, I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I've done the work. I've been going to some seminars. I've done some therapy. I've been listening to audiobooks. I'm pretty good. No, far from it. When I actually got into the relationship, it felt like I did no work. Everything was repeated so accurately, like I did in the relationship. And
so what do you make of that?
Well, I remember Susan Anderson. She's an incredible therapist. And what she said was, when you're single, your relationship dynamics, your patterns are dormant. So you can't really work on them when you're single. It's like someone trying to improve their swimming, but never actually hitting the water. So when I actually got into the relationship, it was the relationship dynamics activated. And when they activated, I could only work on them once they're activated. If they're offline, I cannot work on them. It's like pseudo work. You're not actually doing the work. So when I actually got into the relationship and there is a conflict coming up and I had to lean in instead of leaning out, I knew the theory, but I had to actually do the practice. When there was times when I wanted to fix the situation, I'm fixing the situation. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm fixing it. These things didn't show up when you're single. So as Susan Anderson says, when you're single, the relationship dynamics will be dormant until you get into the relationship. That's when they activate it. And that's when you start doing the relationship work. Yes, you can build your foundation that you need to. That's really key. You need to do that when you're in your own world, but it's the relationship dynamics. So what happened was I repeated the same patterns because I hadn't actually worked on them. In theory, I had. And then that relationship, when it ended, then the second relationship was a little bit better, but it still had plenty of those patterns. And I realized that as I was going through the relationships, my patterns were improving over time, and they were slowly getting better. I was very impatient about it, but it's one of those things that you just can't unwire years of programming in a heartbeat.
But you're bringing up a good point. There's no substitute for real world practice. I mean, I think this is part of why Dr. Glover calls relationships a powerful growth machine. And you can't just do it in your head. And so one of the things that I have in my program is there's different ways to get wins. So while my program isn't about getting into that next relationship necessarily, you are practicing different behaviors, like with your ex, in terms of, what kind of boundaries are you going to set with your ex? How are you, where do you need to be more assertive with your ex? How do you need to communicate with her? So you can start reconfiguring your relationship with her during your divorce and get wins around that. Same with your parenting. If you're a parent, I think when you split with your ex, then you're kind of realizing, what are the holes in my parenting? If you're having to parent by yourself now, or half time, part time, you realize, well, she was the one managing this aspect of parenting. And, maybe that's okay to some degree when you're together. But for me, I wasn't so good at like creating structure for my son. I wasn't so good at challenging him. I think I coddled him in some ways. And in retrospect, I think I was on the way to creating another nice guy with him, so that's been an important part of my divorce journey, is becoming a better parent. That is one of the things that you can look forward to from this opportunity, is you get to really get conscious about how you parent, because nobody is doing it for you when the child is at your house. So there's all these different kinds of wins you can get even during the divorce process. You can start to really really create this new life that is much more conscious and healthier.
Those two things, how to manage your ex and how to deal with your ex I would say, in a non-nice guy way, and then how to parent in a non-nice guy way. I think these two are the most incredible gifts that divorced dads can get. And, it's amazing that you're able to help with that. And I think that on its own for guys is going to be so invaluable. For me, those two were the gift, was being able to not nice guy my ex relationship. So I'm able to have boundaries. I'm able to assert in a respectful way, but also have my voice be heard in the relationship when it comes to parenting as well. I was quite passive in that part. And then it was a real wake up call. It's like, whoa, I've got to do everything and I've got to manage this and run a business as well. It's like, gosh, there is a lot on single parenting. And then also I saw a lot of my habits that showed up in my past relationship also showing up in my parenting, being able to have boundaries, having difficult conversations, sticking to the rules. I mean, that's probably one of the hardest things is you say something and then you just cave in because she's either causing a fuss about it or the kids are causing a fuss about it. And it's like, oh, I just want peace. I just want it to end. Just whatever, just do it. Bringing that discipline in for your parenting and then being able to manage that sets you up for in the right direction. So when you do start creating a relationship, like you said, you've done the work. You're doing the work with your ex. You're doing the work with your kids. So in the next relationship, you've got some muscle power that's already done.
Yeah, one of the things I really got from my divorce and post-divorce was learning that I could actually be on my own. Like I had never been on my own. When I look back on it, I was like, I'd always either had a girlfriend, I was, I got out of high school, joined the military, from the military, got married, had, and then all of a sudden I was alone. And I think that was one of the things that was most terrifying for me was like just the idea of being alone. But once I got into the space and kind of got into the place of acceptance, I started thriving, like I had this really amazing, condo that I was living in and I got to decorate it however I wanted, and I had this really cool bachelor pad going on and, people would come over and they're like, oh, this is so cool, and I got to a point where I was really just thriving in that. And then when, my now wife and I had been dated for about 1.5 years and she asked me to move in, I was kind of like, I'm not sure that I want to, like I really like this place. I like kind of like having my own space and everything. And, eventually I did. And, she had a house, so it made sense to move in with her at the time. But what I learned from that was I don't have to be afraid of her leaving. I don't actually like if she leaves, if something happens, I'll be okay. I'll be more than okay. I'll actually be able to, not just survive, but really thrive on my own. And what that did is it empowered me in that relationship to not be the nice guy, to be able to say, no, this is what I want. And this is the direction that I'm going to go. You're welcome to join me. Because I wasn't afraid of losing her. I wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. And I think for me, that was one of the most powerful experiences that I ever had was just this recognition of like, I can absolutely be great on my own. I don't have to fear it. And as a result, I don't have to put up with anything that I don't want to put up with. I don't have to put up with being treated poorly. I don't have to put up with any of those things. And so I set boundaries really early on in the relationship that, are still in effect today, just simply because I think, my first marriage, I never set any boundaries. Right. And then I think in my marriage now, when we were dating, it was really easy for me to set boundaries and say, it's not okay to treat me like that. If that continues, I'm out, and the behavior would change. So anyway, I think that's something else that you don't see until you're on the other side of it, what the gift is in terms of like, oh, I don't actually need to be in a relationship. And up until that point, I felt like there was this empty part of me that like needed to be in a relationship.
That's really well said. And I think it's important that we're not just talking about going through a period where you're not dating because you haven't had any luck. You're having a dry spell. Like this is conscious time when you are by yourself, or you might even be dating, but you're aware that you're okay without dates or without a relationship. I think that's what you're capturing here. And for a lot of nice guys, they've never done that. That was something that I hadn't actually experienced until a few years ago, was just time by myself where I wasn't trying to be dating or trying to be in a relationship.
Yeah, it's being okay with the fact. I think that was a really good point and a really important point as well. Is once you've gone through that divorce, you've gone through that abandonment, it's like, well, okay, cool. I've gone through those losses. I can handle them. And I think that's where that being that resilience comes in, is like being able to handle the fact that in the future, yeah, there are going to be some problems. There are going to be some losses but I've gone through the worst of it, and now I can handle my situation. And I think that's really empowering. And especially when you go out in the dating after that, you come from such a place of, you're more relaxed. It's like, I always teach the guys, there's only one rule you got to remember when you go out is, I'm good with you, I'm good without you. As when you can remember that and you go out, and that's what resilience gives you when you've done that work, when you've done the training. It's like, yeah, I can face abandonment. I can face breakups. No problem. I can even, and this is one of the most important things that I really struggled with, was even to end the relationship without it dragging on, without it being a relationship I don't want to be in, she doesn't want to be in. And so rather than just sitting there in that pain where we know we should be ending the relationship, now I've got the guts, got the courage to end the relationship and say, hey, this doesn't work out. This isn't serving myself or you. I need to end this relationship. So yeah, there's a lot of gifts that the guys can get from being far more resilient during the dating process and during the divorce process.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, I really want to leave you with this message that divorce, while painful, can lead to it can lead to a big new life and a much more powerful version of yourself. So, divorce can lead to the best mindset that you've ever had. It can lead to the best relationship that you've ever had, the best relationship with your kids that you've ever had, and help you become that leader that you know is inside you. So those are all things that I've gotten from going through this process. So get in touch with me if you want to become that resilient man that you know you could be if you're going through divorce. So I think that's a good place to end the show.
Ari, before you go, what's your, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, go to my website. It's drarigraf.com. And, reach out if you're going through this or you just have questions. And you can reach Faisal on his YouTube or his Instagram or faisal.co. And then Chuck, what's your website?
My website is just chuckchapman.com.
That's easy to remember.
Yeah.
And we've got other nice guy episodes on divorce. Actually, the first one, I think it's number 16 that I was a guest on, was about divorce. So check that out, and we'll see you on the next episode.